Hey guys, Dylan from Noble Records coming at you with another video. Turned 35 last week, so I know a lot of people are like, you look a lot older. Yeah, I've not aged super well. Been a very stressful life that I've lived these past 35 years. But you know, when I get to a 5-year mark, I usually do a lot of looking back and thinking about what I've done with my life and where I've been and kind of what's made me who I am and things I want to fix about the future and things like that. So within doing all that, you know, I was like, I think it'd be a cool video to just go over like what my life has been like as far as like a record collector, because, you know, there's a lot of things personally that I would never share with y'all, but with records, you know, it's been a really cool little timeline from when I started collecting records when I was 10 years old and to now. You know, it's become a huge part of my life. And so I thought I would kind of delve into all that and kind of give you guys a timeline and tell you just kind of what I've learned along the way in a nutshell. So anyways, if you haven't already, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, drop me a comment. I love to stay in touch with you guys. I love the interaction with YouTube. That's the main reason why I do it, is just to get interaction with other collectors. When I started my YouTube channel some year, 6 years ago, it was because I didn't have any friends. I didn't have anybody that collected records with me that I could talk to about records. So YouTube gave me a huge outlet. I love YouTube. I love interacting with y'all. And if you don't have a channel, I highly recommend you starting one if you're lonely with records. Now I got all the friends I want with records because I have a shop and everything. But so anyways, that brings me to my next point. I own a record store in Matthews, North Carolina, where we buy big collections, we recommend records, all that stuff. So follow us on Instagram at Noble Records. And we just started a record label as well. We're just getting it off the ground. We got a lot of releases coming up into this year, early next year. So follow our record label as well at Noble Record Label. I wanted to say real quick before I get going showing records, I want to make it clear. I know that I am right in the middle. You know, there's a lot of guys watching this video that have been collecting records for 50 years, and they know way more than I'll ever know about records. And there's kids watching this channel, they're 13, 14 years old, and they haven't even taken this journey yet, and they're just getting into it. To that, I'll say, the kids that are just getting into it, enjoy the ride, enjoy the records, make friends. Most of my best records came from friends. And then just enjoy it. You know, try not to be arrogant about it. Be really open-minded. Always be teachable. Always be willing to learn. If someone says, "Have you heard about this record?" and you say, "Yeah," and you haven't heard about it, what that does is that cuts you off from hearing about that record. It cuts you off from learning. And you have to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to admit that you don't know everything. But that's been my rule always, is that if someone says, "Have you heard about this record?" and I haven't, I'll say no. I don't know about that record. Why don't you tell me, you know? Because even now, like I said, I don't know everything. People come in the shop all the time. They're like, "Have you heard about this band?" And I'll always be like, "I don't know. I've never heard of it." And "Are you serious? You've never heard of this and you own a record store?" I don't care, because you cannot know everything about everything. It's just not possible. And any record collector that acts like they know it all, they don't know much, because sometimes you got to know a lot to know that you don't know, to know what you don't know. You know what I mean? So anyways, all that to say, and for the old guys that have been in it forever, thanks for watching this channel. Hopefully you enjoy what I have to say, and I'm sure that you have a collection that's much better than mine. So I just wanted to make it clear. I don't want it to seem like I'm saying, "Well, I know everything about records. I've been collecting 25 years." To some people ain't nothing. So buckle up. Enjoy the ride. This has been my life in collecting for the past 25 years. Thought I would just sit back with a cup of coffee and take you through it. So when I was 10 years old, I've told this story a million times. If you are a regular watcher of the channel, you've heard it. But the first record I ever bought, my mom bought me, and it was this Don McLean American Pie. I got a couple records early on that were really killer. For me, they were pretty lame records, honestly. But for me, I listened to them over and over again, loved them. That was REO Speedwagon, High Infidelity, and Styx Cornerstone. Those two records I listened to a million times. But the one that I got after that was just like mind-blowing, all this stuff. It was Led Zeppelin, Physical Graffiti. This is not the copy I got then. This is a promo copy. A lot of these records will not be the exact copies that I got then because I've upgraded over the years. I sold my collection like 4 times. So it's all some. I'll tell you the ones that are the actual ones. But anyways, this is a promo copy. I got a really nice promo copy. But when I first got this record, this was the 4th record I ever owned, if you count America Pie. This did not leave my turntable for probably 6 months. You know, back then I wasn't buying on eBay. I was 10, 12 years old, something like that. So I was just getting what I was able to get at Goodwills, yard sales, stuff like that, which was, you know, I'm sure I passed over a lot of stuff, but I started like getting my collection going that way, just whatever I could find. The internet was obviously around, but it wasn't like it is now. The information I was getting was so pure because it was just what I was finding. So I grew up in a super conservative Christian home. So metal was not allowed. It was just totally not, you know, all that stuff. And classic rock was any music that was not gospel was discouraged, you know. So anyways, getting this, I had a few arm wrestles with my dad, but he ended up being cool about it. Me and my dad are close now. My parents were not into music. You know, my mom sang gospel and everything because she, you know, in church and all that stuff. But I had no context for anything other than like Christian music, gospel and stuff like that. When I started like dipping my toes in like classic rock and all that stuff, I picked up guitar, started learning guitar, and all this music was the type of music I wanted to play. So I was discovering for the first time Santana, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, stuff like that. And it was all, the way I was finding it was finding the records at yard sales and stuff. Like anything with a guitar on the cover, I was buying it, you know. And obviously I'd heard of Jimi Hendrix, you know. I had friends that were, you know, like, hey, you gotta listen to Aerosmith, you know. And so it's so funny to think about it now that like I didn't know who Aerosmith was, but I didn't, you know. And finding their records out and stuff like that, that time was so cool for me. And I'm really glad that I grew up in that age to where that stuff was out there and it was around and I was able to discover it that way so naturally, to where it wasn't like, hey, somebody sends me a Spotify link or whatever. It was like I was going out and I was finding it and I was buying it based on the cover, and then I was listening to it for the first time on a turntable and my mind was blown that way. So another one that really sticks out is Jimi Hendrix, Electric Ladyland. This is my favorite Hendrix record. I love it so much. And it's probably my favorite because I found it early, you know. And what's really funny is this is not the same copy I had. The copy I had was torched. And it's funny because like I found it at Goodwill and the paper on the front cover, like the whole artwork was pulled off of it. It was detached, but it was all still there. And it was turned around to where I thought this was the front cover forever, you know, and obviously that's the front cover. But anyways, that one blew my mind. I mean, Voodoo Child, just the one Voodoo Child and then Voodoo Child Slight Return. Mind blowing, all that stuff. So that was from the time I was 10 years old to 18. I was just out finding stuff, doing whatever I could to discover everything I could. And I was just obsessed with music, you know, at that age. Really obsessed with it, loved it, never thought that would be the rest of my life, never thought it would be a career for me, nothing like that. It was just so pure, something I was really into, wasn't really into sports that much, but I didn't have a lot of friends. I just sat and played guitar all the time, carried a guitar with me to school. I worked at a guitar shop when I got out of school, and so like I literally probably played guitar 8, 9, 10 hours a day. Another defining moment, when I was about 14 years old, I was dumpster diving and did that from time to time back then. And there was I saw some records in a dumpster. I always would look in if I passed one, and this was in there. This is actually the exact copy that I found. And it was, when I found it, it was just a disc. It didn't have a cover or anything. But I put this cover with it over the years. It's actually not that bad for being tossed around in a dumpster. But I never even knew what the cover looked like. But this is a Muddy Waters Blues Band, Luther, Georgia boy, Snake Johnson. This is a really killer blues record. And I never knew what the cover looked like But I took this home. I didn't even know, I think I'd heard of Muddy Waters, but I didn't know who he was. Didn't know anything about blues really. But I grabbed a handful of records and took them home to listen to them. And when I put this on, it blew my mind. I could not even comprehend just it was music, but it was a story, like he was, the song, Long Distance Call, that first song, the emotion in it, and he's telling a story, and it's not like he's performing, it's like he's talking to his friends, and you hear people in the background egging him on, like, yeah, come on, and he's talking, and you got to listen to that song. This album, this is what the cover looks like. So I years later found one on eBay and bought it. Do you never see this record? I've never seen anybody else talk about it or anything like that. This is an absolutely fantastic record. It is amazing. But anyways, if you listen to it, that first track, it just blew my mind, and it was so different than what I was used to. It kind of broke the constraints of what I was used to with like classic rock stuff and the high production of Boston and all that stuff. And I fell in love with blues after that. But this was really the thing that tipped me off. And later on, I found Electric Mud, which became one of my favorites, and that kind of, is a segue into like some blues rock stuff like that. So, of course, this video, I'm going to show you kind of just certain records that, moved me in different directions. The next one definitely would be, so there was a collection. This collection changed my life. So to bridge that to this, that was my teens, look for records, dumpster diving. I never went to record stores or anything like that, just yard sales, flea market, stuff like that. And then went to college, kind of put it down for maybe a year. And I remember looking for records at like Goodwills and thrift stores. I always looked if I was ever around, when I was in college and stuff like that. But I didn't have my turntable with me at college, so it kind of put a pause on it. But when I got out, I was away at college for a year. I took some online courses, but ended up dropping out. But anyway, so I don't have my degree. Don't tell anybody. But then after that, got married very young. I was 21. And our apartment was a 1-bedroom apartment, super small. I had like 1,200 records that I had accumulated over the years. We needed the money. We needed the space. And I ended up selling the records. And I hadn't really gone through all the records that I had until then. Like it had been years since I really flipped through them all and took them in and remembered. And so I sold 80% of them, 90% of them maybe. And man, when I was selling them, it really broke my heart to do it. I was in a phase in life to where I was kind of changing a bunch of stuff. I sold pretty much everything I had at that point, just because we needed money. I was so broke, all that stuff. You know the story. Anyways, so sold the records, and then immediately regretted it. And it weirdly awakened something in me that I was like, these records are important to me. Like all the years sitting alone, no friends, no nothing, I would go home and listen to my records. Like they were so much a part of me, you know what I mean? It sounds silly, but if you're a record collector, you get it. It was so much a part of who I was and my personality, and it was something that I truly loved just because I loved it. It wasn't, I'm tell you why I loved it, but it was something that it was so a part of my soul. I just loved it, And so, for extra money, I started picking up little collections here and there. And then, I would sell off on eBay whatever I didn't want, and I would keep the stuff I did want. So that's kind of something it was a concept I was wanting to do that I hadn't really done. And I think I bought a couple of really small collections that, I didn't have any money. And so, but I ended up amazed. I've told the story a million times too, but it was incredible. There was a guy that had a collection. He was pretty much giving it away. He was moving. At this time, records were not really back. They were not a big deal. I didn't have any money. And I went to his house basically to dig because I knew I didn't have enough money to buy all the records. And I went in there and he had 7,000 records. And I was like, well, I don't have enough money for all these. He's like, well, I'm moving today and these are leaving today. So how much money do you have on you? I was like, I got $200 to my name. He's like, I'll take it. So I bought 7,000 records for $200, and it was every dime I had. By the way, I literally had no other money, and took them home. And then that was so much stuff in there. I had no idea what it was, you know. And it's one of the ones. This kind of split my taste in two directions. One of the ones that blew my mind and I never heard before was this Court of the Crimson King Crimson. I had seen the cover before, but I didn't know what it was. And then I was like, oh, there's that record. I've seen the cover around. I don't know what it is. And I put it on, and I was like, it totally blew my mind. I mean, I was so immediately drawn in, immediately into it. This is not the same copy I got then. This is actually on Vertigo, which it was only on Vertigo in New Zealand. But I love Vertigo, and I love this record, so it took me a while to track one down, but I got it. Anyways, so this completely opened my mind up to prog. I really like prog, and prog is progressive rock, you know. And then another one that was in there was Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. There were a ton of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds records. So I had never listened to anything like this before. And this is one of the ones that was in there. Another one was Firstborn is Dead. That one I listened to more. But this one was another one. I remember listening to this record and thinking, I shouldn't like this. This is wrong. Like, you know, because all I knew was like pretty straightforward stuff. And this kind of was out there music-wise and lyrical-wise, you know. And I remember thinking like I was committing some sins, you know, listening to it because of my super Christian background growing up. You know, most of us in the South and the Bible Belt grew up that way. But anyways, it just kind of, I was worried that I was, you know, dabbling in some dark arts or something. But it's such a good record, but it bent my mind in a way that I didn't know was possible. And then it kind of led me down, you know, there's a lot of other stuff in that collection, punk, new wave, stuff like that. I did sell a bunch of stuff that I didn't even know what it was, but then I did listen to a bunch of stuff too, and kind of widened my taste. You know, I was at a record show and saw this record, Led Zeppelin on tour. This is an awful bootleg. It's an awful shape. This sounds terrible, but it was Led Zeppelin, and I thought I had every Led Zeppelin record. And I was like, what the heck is this? So I bought it was like $2 or $3. I bought it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a live show. What the heck? I mean, I thought I'd hit the jackpot, you know, and that bootleg's not worth that much. It's, you know, it's probably worth like $30 or something. But anyways, so I started going online, trying to learn more about bootlegs, you know. I mean, I was in my early 20s and I was a huge, massive Zeppelin fan. Zeppelin's my favorite band. And I was like, I have no idea. I didn't know what a bootleg was. I had no idea. I'd never seen one before. Never heard of it. And one guy had one on there. And it was on eBay, and it was $5, buy it now. And it was this, going to California, and it said in the description that it was warped, that it sounded warped. And I was like, for $5, whatever, you know, and it's in the shrink, look at this, in the shrink, with that sticker, with that artwork. Check this out. And it is on green and blue vinyl. Look at this. It's the trademark quality, real deal, like, and it was $5. And I was like, shoot, I'll get it. If it's warped, I can probably fix it. And I asked him, I was like, does it skip or anything? He's like, no, it's just warped. It just has a warp. I get it in the mail. It is not warped at all. Just the tape kind of has a little bit of a warble sound when it starts, and that's it. And that's what he was talking about. So the perfect, absolutely perfect copy. So when I found that, I started kind of trying to track down the trademark quality bootlegs and stuff like that. That was a huge one for me. This is going to be a longer video than I thought. As I was going around looking for collections and stuff like that, I met a guy in Asheville who ran a record store, I think like in the late 80s or something, and he was selling his collection. Every record was $5 each, unless it was an import Japanese pressing, something like that, and then it was 10. And I would go up there every time I had money, and I would dig through his collection. And I cannot tell you how, like, groundbreaking that was for my taste. There's so much stuff in there I didn't even know what it was. And he was like, you need to buy that. You need to buy it. He would tell me, he's like, you need to buy that record. If you don't know it, you need to buy that. And I was like, okay. And I started buying the ones he was telling me to, and then I would take them home and listen to them, and they would blow my mind. And so I would always listen to, I knew he had good taste and all that stuff. But the most significant one is this MC5, Kick Out the Jams. Really cool. This is a first pressing, uncensored, all that stuff. He had it. And he actually was like, I was like, I don't know if I have enough money to get that one because I only had like a certain amount of money, and he's like, I'm going to give you that one. You can have it for free. It's that good, and he's like, you just take it, enjoy it. It's going to blow your mind if you've never heard it. And really, this is proto-punk stuff. Love MC5. I love this record so much. It really changed my life hearing that for the first time. And he's the one that gave it to me. Going on, like, this was my 20s. I was digging around looking for different stuff. Let me see if I got this right. There's a lot of records and all these have a story. But I was looking for stuff that was classic rock sounding, but different than I never heard before. This Blue Cheer, I found a bunch of Blue Cheer records, but this one blew my mind. This is the first time I ever heard of Randy Holden. Randy Holden played guitar on this, and it's absolutely fantastic. This is a really nice copy that I found. I, in the process, found a couple hip-hop records. This is Illmatic, Nas, and Enter the Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. These are both first U.S. pressings. I knew that people liked, Wu-Tang Clan and Nas, and picked these up. These ended up being a couple of my absolute favorite records. And I have a very small hip-hop collection, but I do have some great stuff in there. Trying to get this completely right. As far as the timeline, so I started working as a graphic design artist for a t-shirt company, and I had to drive pretty far to get there every day, so I didn't come home for lunch. But during my lunch break, there was a little like junk shop type thing, and the guy would get records, and the records were $1 each. All the records, no matter what they were $1 each. And I walked in probably 3 or 4 times a week during my lunch break because that was the only thing out there. And one day I walked in, and these 3 records are sitting there for $1 each. These aren't the exact copies. These are better copies I've upgraded. But this is, that was the first one I saw, and I'd seen the cover before, and I was like, I need to pick these up. Iggy and the Stooges, Raw Power. And then there was a first Funhouse, and then there was a first self-titled. This is a promo. Anyways, those totally changed my mind as well. Like, kind of got me more into punk, all that stuff. Back then, I was just starting to get into YouTube. That was a way I could discover music that you could listen to albums and stuff like that. Streaming wasn't really a thing then. If it was, I didn't have it. But anyways, and I started, like, one of the first things that popped up was, I think this was when Matt Sands first started his YouTube channel. Shout out to Matt Sands and the Psych professor. So his YouTube channel, I started learning a lot about Psych that way. And then as I was learning about Psych, it would have a recommendation of albums you need to listen to. The one that really hooked me for Psych was this July record. It took me probably 10 years to find a nice clean copy, and this one's like in perfect shape. It's a US press. The UK presses go for like $2,000. These are still pretty rare, but this is one of the absolute most incredible Psych records out there, in my opinion. And as for hard rock goes, Toad was another one that I found early on, and it took me forever to find an original copy, obviously, but this is one of my absolute favorite records. You've heard me talk about it a million times, but discovered that on YouTube and ended up tracking it down. And another one was this Jerusalem record. I never thought I'd have a copy of this, and then I was looking on eBay one night back in the day, and it was a copy for $10, and there was no description or anything. And I was like, $10, I'll take it, even if it's a reissue, whatever. Get it in the mail. It's a first UK for $10. It's pretty incredible. But anyways, the Guy in the Mountains I was telling you about before, this is another one that he had. This is the Cramps, Bad Music for Bad People. He's like, you need to grab that. I did. Really got me more into like punk and stuff. This is rockabilly punk, I guess. But I love the Cramps. I love punk. But as you'll see, and as you've probably seen, certain collections that I buy really get me into certain genres, or they push me into it. Like, I'll get a big collection of something, but I need to listen to this and appreciate it while I have it. Every single one of these records has such a story, so I really hate to skip over them so fast. But Townes Van Zandt self-titled, this record totally blew my mind, kind of sent me down the rabbit hole of, you know, country singer-songwriter type stuff. I remember discovering this record for the first time. Actually, the first record I found of his was Live at the Old Quarter, and I was immediately hooked on it as soon as I heard it. And then I listened to this one. Incredible record. Love it. When these came out, the UHQRs, this is the first one I got. I know I missed a couple. One, I think I missed one. But anyways, this is the first one that I got. And Jimi Hendrix, I Can Smell His Love, and this is incredible. I remember getting it. My system was okay at the time. It wasn't great, and I still could hear such a huge difference. I was like, what in the world is making it sound so good? And that's kind of the record that sent me down the audiophile rabbit hole. So I've got a bunch of audiophile stuff I always talk about. That's the one that sent me down that rabbit hole. So after I started the shop, when collections would come in, that there were things, you know, when I opened the shop, I sold my whole collection pretty much. And so I was trying to get some stuff back, trying to rebuild my collection, but I was finding things in these collections that I'd never heard of before. And opening a store does that. I mean, you get so much in, like you can't even listen to all the stuff that you get in. There's no way. But early on, I got this incredible metal collection. I got a few really killer ones out of there. The one that's most notable is this Pentagram record. It's their first record, first pressing. Unreal that this was in there. This is probably the best record that was in the whole collection, in my opinion. And this kind of sent me down the metal rabbit hole a little bit. You know, there was a ton of Iron Maiden in there. I kept some of that. There was Pantera Power Metal, first press. And that kind of pushed me into metal. You know, a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, got this jazz collection. Hank Mobley, Soul Station. This came in. This is one of my favorite jazz records. I had a reissue of it at the time, and this was an original, so I obviously kept it. And I had kept the jazz demons at bay, and I tried not to get into jazz because I know how expensive it is, and I was like, I got enough stuff I'm into. I don't need to get into jazz. I don't need to get into that. And I really, if you ask like a lot of my friends, they'll tell you like I would try not to think about it. I was sell it, don't listen to it, sell it, don't listen to it, because I knew how expensive it was. I was already into Psych, I was already into Prog, I was already into all this crazy stuff. I didn't even be getting into freaking original Blue Notes. And then this collection came in and I did. I was like, screw it, I can't stop anymore. So I really let myself enjoy it. I kept like probably 10 really good jazz records out of that collection. This is one of them. And then ever since I've been collecting jazz more. When I see it, I don't really seek it out on eBay or anything like that because the eBay prices go crazy. But when I'm out at record stores and I'm like buying collections, stuff like that, I do look for them. And it is my goal, I've said it, as my goal to own every Blue Note. And that's up to like, you know, maybe 1968, maybe, you know. After that, some of them are kind of lame. But anyways, another one, I was digging in a guy's garage a few years ago. Little did I know he would become a very good friend of mine, but he was a DJ back in the day. Crazy story. He had so much killer stuff, and I haven't seen in a while. You know who you are. If you're watching this video, call me. But ended up buying records from him for the next few years. Just and developing a great friendship with him. Really, really super nice guy. But anyways, digging in his garage, and I see this record, Soul Impressions, Janko Anilovic, Nilovic. I never had seen this record, never heard of it, nothing like that. But a cover like that, you buy it. And I bought it, took it home, listened to it. It totally blew my mind. This is the first library record I ever owned. If you don't know what library records are, I collect library records now. They're amazing. You know, soundtracks to movies, films, commercials back in like the 70s. And they were all recorded by incredible musicians. And it's all really amazing instrumental music. And it is almost unknown. Most people don't know much about it. But UK, Italy, there's some US ones too. But it's like really, really cool genre. But this is the one that got me into it. Which is funny because most library records, the covers are so lame and generic. But this one, I was like, I'm buying it. And it's absolutely incredible. This is the first press. Love it. It's one of my favorite records in my collection. It is on my holy moly wall back here. And then I went back to his house and got this Placebo record. Again, didn't know a whole lot about it. And then kind of got into the whole Placebo thing. But a lot of like, this kind of bent my mind a little bit towards like the way like DJs collect records for the different, you know, drum breaks and stuff like that. But it let me hear for the first time really the bass drums, rhythm section, keys, just different instruments. Like my brain is so hardwired for rock and roll, and it kind of helped rewire my brain a little bit to really appreciate funk and you know, that instrumental library, drum breaks, all that stuff. This was one of those records. But I mean, when I went to his house, I would spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every time I went. And then come home with just the most insane stuff. So that was really huge for my development of music. First heard this next record back probably 2012, and never thought I'd ever see an original press. I met some guys in Zambia, and I started wiring them money, and they would send me Zamrock back, and it was a total crapshoot. Like, I lost so much money. It was just like, but that's really the only way to get them. You know what I mean? Like, unless you pay really high prices. Because, I mean, I don't even know what original. This is a super, super clean first press of Witch Lazy Bones. If you don't know what Zamrock is, it's rock from Zambia, psychedelic rock from Zambia, and it is one of my absolute favorite genres. But this was 2020, 2021, something like that. I started sending money to these guys, and they would send me records back. And so it was expensive, all that stuff, but this was the first record I got from them. And which is insane, because this is the best one I ever got. And I was so freaking lucky, you know. And through the course of that, I got almost every Zamrock record I need. I'm missing 3. So anyways, this is an incredible record. And really, this caused me to go down the rabbit hole of Zamrock and buying records from Africa and wiring strangers money and all that stuff, which I'll never do again. But at the time, it was fun. And then around that same time, a friend of mine found a copy of this in a collection, and I begged him to sell it to me, and he wouldn't. But this is Jar Flies, and so I kind of was like, I got to get a copy of that, because I never had one, and I really liked that record back when I was a kid. I had it on cassette. Anyways, but I didn't even know a vinyl copy existed back then. Anyways, ended up finding this copy and a first U.S. promo. This is like a European press, and it's on, like, I think blue and yellow vinyl. But this kind of really sparked my passion to really get the grunge collection that I had when I was a kid. And so I collected grunge really hard, 2021, 2022, something like that, until I got pretty much everything I needed. But all this to say, you know, and this one I left out. Last year, I found this in a closet. Somebody's pretty much dusty old closet full of 45s. And I bought a huge box of 45s. Didn't even know what they were. Just blindly bought them because the LP collection was good. I was like, 45s would probably be good. And this was in there. And this is a first press on the yellow vinyl, which I'm not going to pull it out, but that's what it is. And it kind of sparked my interest towards punk a little bit more. So I collect so many different genres, and this video is longer than I intended for it to be, but every single collection, everything I do kind of leads me down another different rabbit hole. And that's what's been so cool and special and fun about this whole process. And so over the years, you know, record collecting has really added a lot to my life. I really, the gem of the whole thing, the beauty of it is that I've met a lot of really cool people through it, made a lot of really good friends because of it. And I really enjoy what I'm doing with my shop and all that stuff. So all that to say, you know, and to go back to, I guess I started my YouTube channel in 2017 or 18 maybe. And, you know, I never dreamed that it would be what it is now. And I hope that, you know, you guys are enjoying what I put out there. You know, it's been a wild ride. I intend to collect records for the rest of my life. Thank y'all so much for watching. See you guys next time.